This is Charlie's first meeting with us, right?
It is.
So that means no longer.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Hyannis Main Street Waterfront Historic District Commission. This is January 17th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. To all persons deemed interested or affected by the Town of Barnstable's Hyannis Main Street Waterfront Historic District Commission ordinance under Chapter 112, Article 3 of the Code of the Town of Barnstable, you are hereby notified that a hearing is being held at Town Hall, 367 Main Street, Hyannis, Mass. The James H. Crocker Jr. Hearing Room, second floor, 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday, January 17th, 2024. This meeting of January 17th, 2024 is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel. In accordance with MGL Chapter 30A, Section 20, the Chair must inquire as to whether or not anyone is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. Having no takers, I'll move on. So if commissioners and anyone else in the room could please ensure that their phones are secure, turned off on vibrate, however, to just so it doesn't interrupt the meeting, please. I am now calling this meeting to order. I, Cheryl Powell, Chair, am present. Vice Chair Jack Kay is unable to attend tonight. Clerk Commissioner Tom Doherty.
Here.
Commissioner Laura Cronin. Commissioner Matthew Clark.
Here.
Commissioner Jennifer Hinckley Needham. Here. Commissioner Cornelius Crawley.
Here.
Commissioner Kevin Matthews.
Here.
Thank you very much. I'd like to also introduce that tonight we have our new Town Council liaison, Charlie Bloom. Thank you very much for attending. It's always appreciated. If I could also ask staff to introduce themselves.
Good evening, Jim Kupfer, Assistant Director, Planning and Development.
Good evening, Karen Pina, Admin Assistant, Planning and Development.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that being said, we don't have anything on the trainings other than for me to remind commissioners to please have another look at the conflict of interest training. It is something I'm telling any commission that I'm on simply because it's now being overseen, I understand, by the state. So you have to create an account. So if you have any questions, if you could please contact Cynthia Lovell just to make sure that you're up to date on that. Nothing on awards tonight, and I understand there's no specific correspondence other than with regard to our first applicant, which I will come to when that time comes. So I would like to remind commissioners of the purpose of the HHDC. I do this every once in a while just to keep it straight in our minds. According to 112-24, the purpose under Chapter 112, the purpose of this article is to promote the educational, cultural, economic, and general welfare of the inhabitants of the town of Barnstable and the town's unique community character, through the preservation and protection of the distinctive characteristics of the building structures and places significant in the history or architecture of Barnstable, and through the preservation, maintenance, and improvement of appropriate settings or such buildings, structures, and places, and the encouragement of new design which is compatible with the existing historical and community character, and through the benefits resulting to the economy of said town by preserving and enhancing the amenities and historical aspects of the various villages and the areas which make Barnstable a desirable place to live and for tourists to visit. That is our purpose. That is according to our ordinance. So, that being said, we come to our continued business, which is Verizon New England and Company, 49 Ocean Street, Hyannis, map 326, parcel 025, with regard to a new fence. It's continued from our December 20th, 2023 meeting. I will say that we have received on January 16th, 2024, a request for withdrawal of the application without prejudice. It says, I, Robert Bradley, hereby withdraw the application submitted to the Town of Barnstable, Hyannis, Main Street Waterfront Historic District Commission on 12/1/2023. That was the date of the application. So I would like to entertain a motion, please, from one of the commissioners that we accept this withdrawal without prejudice. Is there a commissioner who would like to make that motion?
Sure, I'll make that motion to dismiss this without prejudice.
Okay,
Second.
2 seconds? That's fine. Okay, so I'll do a vote on that. Commissioner Doherty?
Aye.
Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Matthews?
Aye.
Commissioner Hinckley Needham? Aye. Commissioner Crawley?
Aye.
Commissioner Cronin?
Aye.
I also say aye. So that application is allowed to withdraw without prejudice. Thank you very much. And thank you for getting that request in time. Okay, so we now have new business. The first one is the Atlantic Apartment. That's 171 Main Street, Hyannis, map 327, parcel 232. Is there anyone here to represent that application? If you could sign in at the podium, make sure the podium mic is on, I'm not sure it is, and introduce yourself, please. The button is on the left-hand side.
Sorry. Hello? Hi, my name is Todd Elwell. I'm the representative of Atlantic Apartments for the sign permit.
Please tell us a little bit about your project.
Yes, so this is a former commercial office building that we rehabbed into 11 residential apartments. We have completed those aside from Eversource. We are 5 months in waiting for Eversource to connect power with no end in sight currently with that. So we're just trying to check boxes off as we can to try to get this project moving to completion. And one of those being is just putting a sign in front and letting people know that we're here and have apartments available.
Let's see. Commissioners, any questions with regard to the presentation?
No.
Sign going to be powered? I'm just kidding. I'm just a joke. Just a joke.
That's a bad joke.
Thank you for lightening the evening. Any other commissioners with any questions with regard to the presentation? Nope. All right, so I'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on that? Nope. Okay, I will leave public comment open until such time as we go to the motions. Commissioners, how do you feel about it?
I think it's fine.
It's fine with me, sure.
All right. So I see a lot of nodding heads. So we've done the questions, we've done the deliberation. Staff, sorry, Jim, would you have anything that you have to say on it?
Just real quick, just want to confirm, we have a 2-foot by 6-foot double-sided PVC sign, white lettering, black background, no lighting, right?
That's correct. Yep.
Excellent. No further questions. And it's on the existing posts that were there.
Yes, exactly.
Excellent.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I knew I could count on you to bring that up. So, all right. So in that case, I am going to close public comment. If there's no other takers. Would one of the commissioners like to make a motion on the findings?
Sure.
Thank you.
I move that the commission find this application for a new business sign on 171 Main Street in Hyannis to be compatible with the preservation and protection of the district.
Second.
It's seconded by Commissioner Doherty. All right, let's start on this side. Commissioner Hinckley Needham? Aye. Commissioner Carley?
Aye.
Commissioner Cronin?
Aye.
Commissioner Doherty?
Aye.
Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Matthews?
Aye.
I also say aye. Would a commissioner like to make a motion on the certificate of appropriateness, please?
I will.
Commissioner Doherty.
I move to have a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 171 Main Street, Hyannis.
Your mic isn't on.
At 171 Main Street, Hyannis, as described in the submitted materials.
I second that.
All right. So that's been motion and seconded. So Commissioner Doherty?
Aye.
Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Matthews?
Aye.
Commissioner Hinckley-Needham? Commissioner Crowley? Commissioner Cronin? I also say aye. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Good luck with the power.
Thank
in
you
all
so
honesty.
much. I need that. Thank you.
I'm glad that's not our task. Not in our purview. Okay, so next. Stuart Bornstein Shoestring Properties LLC, 110 and 115 School Street, Hyannis, map 326, parcels 121 and 125. This is with regard to new buildings. I did see you coming in. You have some things you would like to display. I'll give you time to get those set up as per your needs. And I'll ask staff, is there any way that particular place they need to put these for the cameras and that?
No, the materials that will be on the TV will be what's on the screen, which for the applicants there is submission. The application has the plans. If you scroll down, the plans that you submitted with the architecturals are all there. So those would be more for the public's consumption.
Would you like us to turn them around so the people in the, would that be better? Because we have access to view them on here.
Turn them around there and want it the other way.
It's just that way we make sure everybody sees them. Thank you. I'm going to suggest that you move one of them over behind your father and one over behind the gentleman here, just simply so it doesn't block the cameras with regard to the commission that's up here.
Is right here okay?
That's fine. And if you could move one over by the, oh, that's fine. Yeah,
I was going to
that
bring
works.
5 of
That
those.
works.
I'm glad I only brought 2.
Hey, picture says 1,000 words, right? And perhaps move that one over a little bit this way so it's not blocking the commissioners. And move over a little more. Next, your representative there, if you could, please. Thank you so much. All right. If you could sign in, please, state your name, and we'd love to hear what you have to say.
Stu Bornstein, developer of the dockside. I also have with me Dan Olgela from Down Cape Engineering and Mike Need from Glendap Architects, who had a crew of 5 different people working on this project to bring it to fruition. And I understand this board is charged with the architectural review and how it looks like historically for the downtown. That's their main hearing tonight. It has really not a lot to do with traffic, landscaping, parking, basically the architectural review of the project is what I was told, that this is what this is about tonight. To bring it up to snuff, we've been through site review, and we've been, they liked it a lot. Didn't need any waivers whatsoever for zoning. We meet all the requirements. 2.5 stories, more than enough parking, height requirements, setback requirements. We were very concerned that we look with the flavor of the town, of what we produced. It's really an outstanding piece of work, and that we spent a lot of time developing. We've been here before with a 5-story per unit, and the town said we could go to 3.5. They would okay it, basically, but we went down to 2.5. We don't need any waivers. We meet all the requirements, including affordable units that are in the units and they're going to be built inside the project. Everything's basically Nantucket gray. I have samples here, 2 types of gray and white trim. There's nothing else outside the building. It's all the colonial look that we're trying to form. I'm going to let probably Dan turn it over to talk a little bit about the site, and then I'll turn it over to Mike Nee, would explain what the units are and how they lay out, and the details, a lot of architectural details, historical, that we really incorporated into this to make it look as good as it's going to look. So I'm going to turn this over to Danny to start with, and from there, Mike Nee will pick it up, and I'll come back and answer some questions if you need some.
Before you leave, did you sign in on the paper?
I did sign.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Good evening, Dan Ojala. I'm a professional land surveyor and also a professional engineer and helping steward out with the dockside in. We're setting this up. Mike Nee actually had a lot to do with it, who's sitting next to me here. He had worked on some of the prior iterations of the project. And during that permitting process, they changed the local zoning. And the local zoning was carefully vetted. It was in committee for over a year, I believe. But at the end of the day, it was voted on and approved, and basically set about a lot of revised bulk parameters for this lot. And what you can do now in the town of Barnstable is, based on the density of the parking and septic and the building layout, you can basically put a little bit more lot coverage than was allowed before, and your density is limited only really by what you can fit on the lot. The stories remain 2.5 stories, so we work carefully to meet that requirement. We were seeking some significant building height relief. That's no longer on the table, so it's a much reduced footprint from what was before. If there was a concern about the massing, and originally that higher building did go through this committee. It was a split vote, but we did get the majority of the committee to vote for it. I think there was one against. But, and at the end of the day, that was not chosen to be developed, and the zoning did change. And so here we are. We're on the very eastern end of your district. This is getting into the area where there's some higher buildings. The hospital, of course, is on the east of us, and as is the condominiums across the street, which are multi-level. The old Greenery building has a big roof deck that's quite a bit higher than we will be here. Nonetheless, we think it's a livable height. It's a reasonable height. One of the nice things about this proposal now is you can see the green belt around the buildings is significantly more than was before. We pushed the envelope a bit before, being right up to the 0 setback on the front. Now we're a full 20 feet off the street line, and there's even more green between the street line and the pavement. The building is reduced in footprint. It's squatted down from where it was. Mike did a great job of breaking up the roof lines and making it look very interesting from the street. One of the big features on this is Mr. Bornstein is paying the money to hide the parking underground, so you don't have to look at a row of parking or even try and screen parking that's at grade. You drive down about 5 to 6 feet, and all the cars are tucked underneath the building, and then the first floor is raised a little more than 4.5 feet above the grade plane, so that we have room to park underneath, and then the first floor is elevated up just a bit. We're helping screen that with some lattice and screening around the buildings. He's dressed it up very nicely, so it blends in nicely with the topography. There's a bit of a hill condition on the bottom of the sheet here, which is the east. We have a small retaining wall a couple feet down to cut the grade in that area. And on the very west side, we've got a retaining wall to build the ground up. So it basically tabling off the site by cutting on one side and filling on the other. And again, dropping all the parking will be hidden behind screen building underneath grade. So you won't be looking at a sea of asphalt, instead of attractive Nantucket gray finish with the white trim building. And it's, again, being set back from the street about, on the average of 15 feet more than the old one, a full 20 foot from the street line. You're going to have a better perspective at this. I think the scale and massing will be hopefully unanimously approved, as it does meet all the current new zoning bylaws, and the aesthetics. I think when Mike gets into that, you'll agree Stewart and company have done a fine job getting this to a place where it's an approvable project by all the commissions in the town. It was warmly accepted by Conservation. They like the fact that we're reducing the amount of impervious. Prior, we had a little bit of parking in the front buffer. That's gone away. So the 50-foot buffer has just about 100% been greened up on this proposal, versus before we had quite a bit of building and some other hardscape, including a few parking spaces out front. That's all eliminated. It'll just be nice native vegetative plantings. Again, I don't want to say that it's a completely native site, because this is a scalped and shaped man-made coastal bank, and Mr. Kirker has a bathhouse type building approved, a low building in the bank. But nonetheless, we're doing the best we can. We're giving that a buffer and greening it up on our side. And we think it'll be a nice investment in the town. Mr. Bornstein's obviously going to invest a lot of money to make a beautiful building, and would look forward to approval. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you do have if they come up, and I'd hand it to Michael to speak to the aspects of the building.
Thank you very much. Did you sign in, sir?
Yes.
Thank
Yes,
you.
we both did.
And I believe there's somebody else that would like to speak. If you could also ensure that you signed in. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. My name's Michael Nee. I'm with Gienap Architects. And I just want to talk a little bit about the aesthetics of the building. The proposed design, as you can see, utilizes traditional coastal vernacular features, including roof forms. They're primarily 10-pitch roofs, so quite steep, as traditional for New England. We have very traditional siding used, shingle forms, and a combination of lap siding as well, certain elements. On the corners of the site, I'll flip to this in a second. Find the right sheet. How do I rotate that?
There's a rotate right just a little bit, and you hit it 3 times.
This one here?
Yeah.
These are all showing up pretty light, so I apologize, but they're rather washed out, but this is supposed to be a coastal gray color. And on the corners of South Street and School Street are these octagonal forms that are turret-like, and those become accessible common lobby spaces. So up front, on the most public corners, we've created those. They have very decorative elements at the front entries with ornamental brackets and projecting curved pediments. And they feature more glazing and are a little more open, and feature the darker gray colors to set them off a little bit from the private residences. We can see heavily landscaped along the main street, South Street. This is a view of the corner of, on the left is the corner facing more southward on the street. I guess that would be more eastward, I'm sorry, southeast. And then the opposite corner. Lost my.
There it comes.
I guess it just takes a little while to regen, I'm sorry. This is the view from the water side, kind of looking up the hill at this would be the east parcel. So this side, we have some dramatic roof decks that kind of take advantage of the water views. Again, with these sort of turret-like elements with decorative, smooth Tuscan columns. decorative brackets at the decks and beams supporting the decks. The windows all have traditional decorative trim with a ram's head style pediment detail that's common to all the fenestration. So a lot of very traditional New England details and trying to really maintain a very residential 2.5-story scale with the massing. And as you can see, really try to break up the massing as much as possible so you're not facing a monumental face of a building on any side. It's highly articulated with a lot of changes in roof. Let me see if I can bring up another view here. This one here?
Yeah, 3 times.
Yeah. Okay, this is a little more panned back view, looking across South Street, looking at really the 2 most public faces along South Street. You can see again steep pitched roofs with dormers, very traditional, with these octagonal elements on the corners to really kind of open up the corner in a very public gesture, and to really provide entrances on both streets for each building, from both South Street and from School Street. The parking areas are screened with a vinyl trellis type material, and the undersides of the decks are also enclosed with that, so that's meant to be a unifying feature around the building. And kind of one more view here from the main street, looking from each side. This is kind of look from South Street, looking mostly, I guess, southeastward, and then the opposite looking westward. Yeah. Thank you. You can see in the printed renderings aren't quite as washed out as what you have on screen here, and have a little deeper color rendering to them. But a lot of attention to kind of small-scale details and traditional decorative brackets at these balcony elements, the decks, and the main entries as well. I think I've covered most of it, so if anybody would like to posit any questions, I'd be willing to answer them.
First, I want to apologize to Mr. Bornstein. I didn't realize I was cutting you off behind because I suddenly thought I was here or whatever. Would it be, and I saw you tried to move it, would you, I'm trying to find Jim, where would you recommend we put that so that we don't block Mr. Bornstein and that we still have it to where it's not, protruding the camera?
So you all have a copy of the plans
We
in your
do.
package, so I don't think those are necessary
don't think
technically
they
for the
are either.
board. Yeah.
We have a copy of every single slide that's there. If we wanted to put them on the sides of the room, I didn't want to cut off Attorney Brennan and Mr. Kirker either over there. Sorry about that. I didn't realize that. I'm looking around the room. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you for your presentations. Was there anything else you wanted to present?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll go to the commissioners, and then I'll also go to staff. In fact, I'll go to staff first in this particular case.
Thank you. I just wanted real quick to touch on the criteria here. So we're talking about new construction, so there's not every day that this commission has to deal with new construction. So it's under section 11232, the criteria. In the case of new construction or additions to existing buildings or structures, the commission shall consider the appropriateness of the size, shape, and the location of the building or structure, both in the relation to the land area upon which the building or structure is situated, and to the building, the structures, and the general setting in the vicinity. So we're looking at the architectural features there, and if we go to our supplemental design guidelines, page 20 and 21 begin to really start to build out that conversation in terms of looking at building form, its spacing, scale, proportion, massing, et cetera. And happy to chime in and answer any questions as well.
We might well come back to you. But I thought it was important because we brought up the 112 a number of times in recent months. And at the moment, they are still the same, even though we had other meetings, just to clarify that. And I also want to emphasize, Jim has touched on it, this commissioner should realize this is a new application. Mr. Bornstein we've had the pleasure of having him before us before, but this is not the previous applications. This is to be regarded as a new application, please. And correct me, Jim, if I'm wrong on any of that. So as Jim has said, the size, shape, location, and the settings. So commissioners, what do you feel about it? Oh, by the way, first I want to say thank you, Mr. Bornstein. Nice to see you again, and I want to thank you for trying to adapt this. Commissioner Doherty.
Thank you. No, I think it looks
Your
very,
microphone.
very good.
Microphone.
I have a few questions, though. The railing, what is the material of the railings?
Thank you. Mike Nee with Guinap Architects. It's a combination of vinyl on the main upright posts, and then the infill is, in most cases, is an aluminum system that's uses traditional molded forms.
That's the balcony, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, and it's going to be black.
Yes, it's intended to be black, and it would be. It wouldn't be kind of a blockish and squarish. It would have kind of a traditional molded feel to it.
Okay. The windows, do you have a closer picture of what the windows are going to look like and the trim, actual trim detail?
Yeah, we could probably zoom in on that for you. It features a pediment on top of each window that has a decorative molding that's called a pediment style molding. And I can try to zoom in. I don't know whether I can do that. Okay.
If you can't zoom in, you might be able to just pass that around because that's large enough. It probably displays it.
Okay. I could do that.
Yeah, this must be a scan that came out a little bit grainy. I'll see if I can get it off a PDF here and zoom in on it.
Essentially, it's flat casing on the sides, and then a flat casing on the top, and then on top of that flat casing is a decorative molding piece that forms like a crown molding on top of that, and it extends slightly proud on each side of the side casing.
And the moldings on the gable, are they just going to be plain, or are they going to be a little ornate in any way? It's hard to tell.
They would be it would be actually be a molding rather than a flat stock, so it would actually be nicer than you would traditionally see with modern homes. So it would be a crown-style molding on the rakes and on the at the eaves as well.
This has nothing to do with the thing, but the electrical is not going to be underground. It's going to be on poles then, right?
The electrical is what's there, yes.
I think it looks nice. The only thing I would suggest, if possible, is certain areas, especially like down School Street, and I know we did it at the TD Bank, is maybe adding shutters where it's applicable, especially if you showed one view on South Street, there's a couple windows, I think could have warmed it up like it did with the TD Bank building. That would be my only suggestion. Thank you.
Commissioner Carley, please.
Thank you. Just a quick question. I'm looking at these renderings, and in light of Jim's reciting the statutory language about location, land area, and general setting. I notice there are a number of illustrations that are at eye level, looking from the premises out onto the waterfront. And I think A902 is a perfect example of that, where we see a boat in the distance. But what I'm not seeing is any illustration from the waterfront in of how this would present on the larger waterfront itself. Do you have any illustrations like that?
We have several views from kind of the bottom of the hill, but not out at sea, I'll say.
Like right here?
And Dan can probably look at that.
Okay.
Commissioner Crowley, if you look at the staff report,
Yes.
you'll see some pictures of from the water up.
This is, the one that's on screen now.
Yeah, there you go.
Is a good view from,
Yeah, I'm talking more of how this presents in the context of the larger waterfront with the water as frontage in the illustration. I mean, this could be anywhere. I'm looking for an illustration that shows, with a setback, how does this present to the larger waterfront area? Do we have any illustrations like that?
no, I don't have any.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's a 35-foot high building that's compliant. It's lower than-
what about lighting? Will there be lighting in the front facing the waterfront?
Not heavily lighted, but
No.
obviously every entrance has to have a little light, and then it would have porch lights, right?
Yeah, everything would be dark sky compliant, so it would be lights that shine downward and not outward, and would really just highlight the egress paths from the building primarily, and there would be some lighting at each one of the balconies. Again, a down light, essentially.
I have a few things that I wanted to touch base on. First of all, I like the design of the building. I like the different roof lines, the pitched, roof, the flat roofs, the dormers. I like the octagonal features. I like the balconies. I mean, there's a lot of different interesting features to this. I like how you did the parking underneath as well. I also wish that in the presentation there would have been more of a highlight on the details, like Tom was saying, like the railings, the materials, the lighting, what you're actually using, so we can actually see the lighting that you're planning to use, or the details of the railings or the windows, whatever they had been. I wish there'd be a little bit more on that so we can just see it. The other thing is building utilities, stuff like garbage and any kind of HVACs or all that. Is that all protected and fenced in from view?
Yeah, it's actually screened.
Okay.
And it's actually on the front of the building behind fencing and
This is it
trellis.
here,
Yeah, so it's behind landscaping and behind fencing and trellis, and
So is it
it's pretty well camouflaged.
okay?
Yeah.
And then the other thing was, I like all the plantings as well. These are very colorful. These are very pretty. They're all local plantings and Cape Cod, natural plantings.
Generally, yeah, we selected from a native palette
Okay.
that will withstand some salt and so forth. And the new bylaw is very prescriptive in terms of a very significant number of shrubs, small trees, and large trees every 50 feet.
Right.
And so we laid that out around. And as we get through the site plan review process, we'll make sure that they're very comfortable with that.
Awesome.
And, they will be native species almost exclusively.
Thank you very much. Just double checking. Okay, that's what I have.
Commissioner Cronin.
Good evening. Thank you again. I really, again, thank you for working with us and coming back with a proposal that's coming in more in line with where we are with our zoning. But I do want to just be clarified that the harbor side zoning has not changed. It is still the same as it was before. As you said, the Hyannis Harbor Historic has not changed any zoning. With regard to the stories, it's 2.5, like you said, stories. I just had a question on A201. It shows some of the elevations on the building.
And just, if I could request that you take the picture down so that Mr. Bornstein can see the people speaking to. 201?
A201, it shows some of the elevations.
Took you literally.
It didn't have to go that far down.
let me see if I can pull that up. I had so renderings, and then the site plans would be your architectural set. That should be the latest. And you're looking at A what?
A201, building elevations.
There we are.
So it does show that it is 60 feet. Am I reading that correct?
Oh, yeah, but that's elevations above sea level, and then, not height. Let's zoom in on that.
It's a 35-foot high building as defined by the town.
So from the waterfront, it's still only 35.
From the average grade plane, which is how you measure it around the building, the first floor is a little less than 5 feet off the ground, and the midpoint of the highest roof is a little under 35.
Basically how it's done, yes.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, that's the midpoint of the highest roof, is 35?
It's not defined that way. It's defined by the top of the ceiling joists.
Okay, thank you.
So that's to the top of the ceiling joist. It's just under 35 feet. It's around 34. I think it varies from each site.
But with the roof, does it account the rooftop as well, the peaks on the roof?
No, that's not how building height's measured.
If you could explain that again, please.
Sure. Maybe Jim would like to speak to the definition in the town, but it's the average grade plane to the top of the roof joists, or the ceiling joists in this case.
So just not to interrupt, but you see the average grade plane elevation 26, 2.5. So you'd measure up from there, and that would be your height. So if you had 60, 10.5, you'd subtract from it 26, 2.5 to get your actual height difference. Let me see, did you? Yeah, so that is actually shown there as 34'3" or whatever the number is.
Yeah.
And to Ms. Cronin's point, though, specifically from the water, so from the sea level from the water, it's 60 feet up is essentially the height from the water, from the harbor's top of water up. That's the sea level number.
Yeah, and we're not quite waterfront. Mr. Kirker owns the marina in front of us, so we're not on the water, but it's not too far away. And then, again, the, oceans go up and down. It could be as high as, 2 to 3 feet above that zero for a high tide. So depending on where you are when you're watching, it'll go up and down a few feet.
Also on this picture, you show some lighting. Are these actually what the fixture is going to look like? And it looks like there's a lamp post on the right.
I could provide you with a cut sheet on that if you like, but yeah, it's a traditional.
Yeah, I think I think it looks good. Don't get me wrong. I think it looks good. I just would like to see the details. The windows, the trim, what it looks like, the railings, what it looks like. And this is a view, and I'm not going to get stuck on shutters. You do it or you don't do it. But, this is the area here where I think shutters could warm up this area going down School Street. Okay. But I'd just like to see a little more detail. But overall, I think it looks very, very good.
That's what I would agree with that, is that I think it looks great. I think if we could have a little bit more details on the materials, then we would be able to, I think, get past some of the questions that we would have on what the final design is going to be looking like in the windows and materials.
I could give you a handout now that I have as a hard copy, if that would be useful for making a decision. That has
With the close-up details of like the trim and the windows and all that?
Yes.
Yes, lighting as well.
Yeah.
And where they'd be placed. I mean, it would be helpful if with this design that we could see the actual materials that would be placed within these designs.
Can I ask staff if we have copies for the commissioners of that?
I don't have them, they were not submitted with the application, but you can certainly accept them this evening for your consideration, or we could have them for a future meeting.
Okay, I understand. If the
no
commissioners
horizontal.
don't have any further questions, I'd like to turn over to staff to see, for the report, Jim, on if you could address particularly the height and how that works out. I think where my concerns are is that it's 60-something feet above sea level, but how that, just also for our public so they understand how it works in, doesn't work in, and whatever. Please. Is that okay?
Absolutely. So in terms of building height, just quickly pulling up the definition. Story height is measured vertically from the surface of the finished floor to the surface of the finished floor above. When there is no floor above, story height is measured from the surface of the finished floor to the top of the structural beam or joist, as the applicant was mentioning, or the top of the wall plate, whichever is more. And so again, for just for everyone's knowledge, so we measure the heights through stories. So we have a ground story. We have no greater than 18 feet for ground stories. We have no greater than 16 feet for others. However, with the Hyannis Harbor District, there is no greater than 35 feet maximum building height. So that's where that 35 number comes in for the harbor specifically. And 2.5 stories, again, is the maximum.
Just to clarify for us and for the public, 35 feet from where to where?
So it's,
For the harbor district itself?
yep.
From
so
the
it's,
base?
Yep, so the ground, the base are, shoot, sorry, let me get back to it. From the ground level to the top of the wall or joists, whichever is more. And so the 35 feet as shown, as according to the building commissioner in his review, does meet the zoning at this time, as well as the 2.5 stories, obviously.
So that extra of 3, 4 feet, whatever, for the peaks, doesn't count. That's free space.
Right, and
Okay.
but it's further measured, so if it was habitable versus non-habitable.
Yeah.
And also for the, there is another dimension for the peak, maximum peak of the roof, or the angle of the roof, which again also complies
Okay.
at this time.
Any other commissioners before I ask for any other clarifications?
I'll say something.
Yes,
It's a
Commissioner
beautiful
Nicolini.
building.
Pardon?
It's-
What was it?
It's a beautiful building. It's too bad that those electrical poles can't be underground going down School Street. Is that impossible to do? Such a beautiful building, and then with all those,
Yeah, at this time, I think what we would say is that we're not going to offer that at this time. If, in the course of construction, if it seems to make sense, we might consider it, but we would not be offering it at this time due to the cost of the project versus, I would just leave it at that. But it's certainly something we can look at later. And it was a part of the first proposal, but this one is not, but it could be considered, but we would not offer it at this time.
Quickie question, and Jim, this is for you. If we look at, A900 and A901, this again is clarification for the commission and for public, and A902. If you look there, it looks like 3 stories on some of the parts. The first 2 are solid, the next is up. You were talking about living space. Can you define, because presumably that could be a 3rd floor?
Right, exactly. And so I've had actually specific discussions with the building commissioner on that when this was received. So as you'll see in all the habitable areas, it's 2.5 stories. And then there are locations where there's, for lack of a better, like the turret type feature that's not habitable. It's deck space, it's open air space. And so that would not be considered a story. So that you refer to the heights and not that 2.5 story maximum. So everywhere where there's habitable space, it was reviewed and determined to be 2.5 stories. And where there's not habitable, yes, that open air feature, that covered deck is higher than that 2.5 story pitch, but doesn't exceed the overall height requirements.
This is the handout of all the details that everybody wanted to see.
Thank you.
They're all historical, all meet the town's requirements, and I think they're very expensive details too.
So what I would do, because this is the only copy?
No, we have, we can certainly bring you up more.
I can also email you the PDF as well. You could do that now if you want to.
Madam Chair, I think it would be helpful if we had it in connection with the building itself instead of just having it on the handout. I mean, I think we're almost there. I just think seeing it where it's going to be placed on there would be very helpful from our
I'd be happy to
our
walk you through it
standpoint.
right now, if you like, Laura.
I think what you're saying is we'll have a chance to go over it without just passing out a handout. Is that correct?
Agreed, thank you.
Okay, so thank you for the handout. Well, let me ask, are there any other questions real quick before I address this? No? Mr. Bornstein, again, I thank you for, you don't have to come up. Be relaxed. I want to again thank you for coming back to us, and for coming back to us. I think you've made significant changes. A lot of them look really nice, at least in my opinion. I always say I'm one voice, one vote. I think we do, because I think most of the commissioners have brought up the lighting and some of the railings and some of the other things, and the lamp posts and the placements and all that. What I'm hearing from the commissioners is that they'd like to have a chance to each have one of these, to go over it, to understand what it is, also check what where the placements are of them.
Yeah,
and
those
to
placements
continue.
are on the site plan.
They're indicated,
They're
It
drafted
looks like they are.
with a symbol. You have to look kind of carefully on your scale, but I can zoom in if you'd like, but.
I would appreciate if these had actually been submitted with, because usually materials are submitted with it.
It's
But,
in
you
there.
know,
The site plan is in there.
I think it's come a long, long way, personally. I think most of the commissioners agree. I don't know. But I will. I'm going to just pass this around. If it's all right with you, I'm going to open it up. Any commissioners mind if I open this up to public comment? We'll come back later. Any others for public comment that want to come forward? I'll leave it open until we go to, I'm sorry. Yes. Actually, I'm told that somebody is filming this. Oh, I didn't see her.
She's just playing
Ma'am?
on her phone.
Ma'am, are you just on your phone or are you filming?
She said she's not filming.
Checking the Celtic score, I think she's doing.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I just let you know, we did ask in the beginning if anyone was taping or filming to please let us know. Thank you. Yeah. Attorney Brennan, welcome.
Attorney Lawler. That's okay. I'm the youngest of 8. I've been called everything, including the dog's name.
Apologize, sir.
So, good evening, and thank you. I'm an attorney, and I represent Dockside Marina, which is an abutter to this property. And I heard Mr. Bornstein address the board initially and made some comments about that this being about the architectural, solely about the architectural components. And I agree with him that, traffic and things like that are not the purview of this board. But certainly, Mr. Cupford read the certain provisions that this board is not just about the architectural features of the building, the windows, the clapboard, the rails and things of that nature, but you can take the overall effect. I actually want to read a provision in the guidelines for building sites on page 41 of the guidelines. Even though these guidelines emphasize buildings, which I just talked about, and the construction, maintenance, and rehabilitation of buildings are only a part of what gives HHD its district character. Our unique neighborhood combines architect with sites that may have fences, lighting, paving, plantings, and yards. Clearly, buildings and their sites must complement each other to preserve the district's historic character. Whenever you consider making changes to building site, carefully weigh whether the changes would follow established historic patterns, look beyond the lot, immediate neighborhood, ask yourself the changes, would they benefit existing features? The guidelines in this section can help you decide if you change appropriate and therefore approve by the commission. So I just wanted to clarify that the scope of this board, and I'm not trying to preach to the board, I want to be careful of that, that it's beyond what was initially represented, that, you know, it's just the building features. And, you know, and and in looking at that and looking at the, you know, the size and these features, there's also the, you know, the zoning, whether it's subject to the planning board or the zoning board, in this case, it's the planning board. Those are separate and distinct regulations, and they deal with zoning. This board deals with historic, and you're not governed by the zoning regulations. So just because something conforms with zoning doesn't mean it conforms with historic regulations. They're apples and oranges. Sometimes they complement each other, and sometimes they're different. And what I really wanted to point out is, even though that, and again, the other application, that building, that 5.5 stories, which was never initially proposed, was never built. It was never there. It was just on paper. What was there was a small restaurant. So when you're looking at this application, I ask that you try to take out of your mind that phantom, because it never existed. It got approved by this board, but it didn't get approved, and it's not here. It was just on paper. No one ever saw it from the water. No one ever drove down South Street and saw that building. It's never been there. And it's hard because when you're on these boards and you look at something and you kind of get in your head all those old plans you've been looking at for 3 years, and you get that in your conception of what was there. Well, it's a phantom. It was never there. What was there was an old restaurant, and what's there now are 2 vacant lots. That's it. 2 pieces of dirt, rectangular, and that are called the dockside for a reason, because they're right up against the water. Now, yes, there's a little bit of land that separates them, but remember also, this had to go through conservation. So that means that a portion of this land was within the 100-foot buffer of the coastal bank. So that answers your question, is this waterfront or whatever? And then that's kind of semantics. It's on the water. It's, you know, certainly overlooking it. The heights, from my memory, are about 32 feet above sea level, and then if you added the 35, so this building's, you know, asking the question of what it would look like from the water, it's towering at 65 feet on the highest point, and that takes in the general neighborhood concerns. And if you might pull up that plan with the 2 orange buildings side by side, Dan, could you do that for me, please? Thank you.
2 orange buildings. So site plan?
Site plan, yeah. I should have.
Color renderings aren't coming out too good.
Yeah, can you shrink it so they can see the whole thing, or no?
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And slide it over a little bit. Perfect. Thank you, that's perfect. You know, and if you look at the historic area, the massing of these buildings, not just the height, but they essentially take up, you know, 70, 80%, 70 or so, I don't have the exact numbers in my head, but 70% of the lots. Nothing in that neighborhood, or certainly very little in that neighborhood, the structure takes up that much of the individual lot and the massing of the lot itself. There's really, you know, other than on the, I think it's the western building, you know, you have that little bit of vegetation on the hill, and then other than that, you have, you know, it's just a giant building surrounded by a couple of trees on the road. It's not historically consistent with what's there. It's not consistent what's within the neighborhood. The massing of the building itself on the lot, again, nothing to do with zoning, but under the historic guidelines, is just too big, historically. I actually have aerials, and I apologize, I thought I printed out a couple more. I have 6 sets, so I'm 1 or 2 short, if I may. Share a little bit. I'm sorry, there's 2.
I'll try tonight.
I think I have an extra page. I'll give you that. I think you needed 3. But here we go. So I think we have, I'll let you 2 guys share. Sorry about that. Those are just laid out of what the neighborhood looks like. And they're smaller buildings. If you look at the actual square on the first page, that's the old Dockside Restaurant. I mean, again, none of the buildings in this particular area, very few, certainly and some of those encompass the other side of the street, which is not within the zoning district, but it is within the historic district, so you can consider it. They just don't take up that much of the lot. Also, and if you look at and a couple of other things, it's not rocket science. It's just, the building just isn't historically consistent. The history of this area are buildings that, generally took up 20, 30% of a lot, maybe 40% of a lot on a big building. This is just all-encompassing the lot. And Mr. Cupford read to you the guidelines after the applicant made his presentation, and he talked about size, and I'm also saying massing. Just because it's 2.5 stories and that high for zoning doesn't mean it's 2.5 stories and that high for historic. It's not what the buildings in the situation is there as well. And a couple of other notes, and I do think this is in your purview. If you look at the front of the building, and I don't have it in front of me, but you can go back and you have these in front of you. You have the fence in front where you have the garbage being stored in the front of the building and being, and coming out onto South Street. I mean, garbage has always been stored in the back of a building, and and that to be delivered in, the history, those features are trying to cover up the garbage removal in the front of a building. I don't think is historically accurate, historical function, and is a problem. But again, and I'm not going to get into the issues of, gutters and windows and those, certainly you folks have been on these boards forever, and that's really your expertise. But what I'm talking about is the general district itself and the character and the nature of the district. Did it expect to have a building this big? And remember, again, this is going from a small restaurant to this very large building. That 5.5-story thing that everybody talked about earlier and complimenting, and I'm sorry, and I'm not, the applicant is, doing his job and trying to get these things, and certainly I believe thoroughly he believes in his projects, and I know the last one he believed in passionately. And I compliment him for that. But the reality is that that project never happened. And again, I want to emphasize it, because I got a little concerned listening and people talking about the other project like it existed. It never existed. What existed is the Dockside Restaurant. And that's what I think is your starting point. And the ending point is what you get from the restaurant to here and from the vacant lot to here, not from some proposed building, even though it's been in front of you for 2 years. And I know your volunteers, and I know the amount of time that you put into this, and it's so much appreciated. I'm being paid to be up here. So I want to leave it at that, and it's those are the big issues, but it is, again, the premier waterfront area, historically, and should be looked at from the ocean as well as from the land, but. And again, having garbage going on, I mean, South Street's literally one of the most premier streets in the entire town of Barnstable, all 7 villages. It's historic, and thank you.
I would agree with you. It is a premier place, and I want to thank you for your. That's why I pointed out right at the beginning, this is a new application, and for everyone to keep that in mind.
Yeah, and it was just because of the conversation, and I want to be respectful about it, because it's so easy to do. I even catch myself doing it. So,
yeah,
and here I am, pointing it out. So,
yeah, and I agree. That's why I make it clear right at the beginning. It's like this is our entrance. This is new. Don't go back.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Could I rebut just a bit?
As public comment, I believe I can allow because of public comment.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think sure. Dan Ojala from Downcape Engineering. Stuart wanted me to remind the folks, Mr. Lawler nicely said that the only thing up there was the Dockside Inn, but Mr. Bornstein actually tore down buildings that were on the top and put up the Dockside Inn when they built the Steamship Authority.
if some of you may remember, and I can pass this in for the record, there was a huge, I can read the letters on the sign because they're about 2 foot high, visible from the whole harbor, Lewis Bay Motel, Restaurant, Marina. And there was a big swimming pool up there and a 2.5-story building that stretched the entire width of the lot. And on the other side, a real eyesore, a 2-story motel, strip motel, both levels with the entire rest of the lot, paved parking lot, you can see, and then a nice attractive elbow flat roof on the west. So that's what was here before 1995 or so. So this has not always been the kind of cute little dockside inn, which is here, moved up to the top. It was a rather extensively developed site with a huge 2.5-story motel, pool, and unattractive strip mall type hotel on the other side. So, if we're going to go back a little ways, that's probably the appropriate starting point. Before that, I'm sure there were some historic homes, but it's not like a virgin site. And Mr. Kirker, who has, other buildings, again, not in your jurisdiction in the other town, but of similar massing, here's a big building that's on the order of 50 feet above sea level to the peak of that cupola. And then what he's proposing right in front of this is coast to coast, ladies' room, men's room, showers, laundry, office, and marina facility, staggered to get as much building as he can right against the coastal bank. And this was approved by Conservation. I don't think it's, in fairness, gone through this commission, but that was his proposal for the front that I believe the permit is still active on, been extended and extended. We have a view easement over it, so he can't go up and block our view. But, that's another thing to look at, and it would break up the green slope that's there. It would all be infilled with this restroom-type building with some big stairs up the bank. So, that's his proposal for what's in front. We feel ours is very attractive. It meets current zoning. It's set back a full 50 foot from the coastal bank that he's against there. And we're greening up that buffer to the extent that we can. And I think it's a much better improvement. This building here is the historical landmark on the site, the huge Marina Hotel, and completely paved. We're putting all our parking underneath, and the fenestrations and details can be worked out. But I'd just like to get this into the record to show what was on the site.
Could you pass that around?
Yes, and thank you very much. Just to clarify that not only is this a new application, but one, the hotel, as you say, was there before 1995. Sounds like it came down around 1995, so that's about 30 years ago. So we can go by the historical of what is here now, but, we're dealing with what we have. Also, Mr. Kirker is not the one with the application tonight, and it's not with regard to the marina that he has. And also, I know it's been referenced this evening again about the comparison to the hospital, and there's no date on this, so to the hospital, particularly to Mugar, I believe, which is 6 stories. But I will remind people that the Mugar building with the hospital is not in the historic district. It's barely out of it. So they did not have to come before us. They were actually on our agenda at one stage, and I've been on this commission long enough to know, because right in the beginning when I came on about 8 years ago, and then it was removed because it came to light that they're not in the historic district, so it doesn't really bear weight on this.
Fair enough.
Thank you. Anyway, let's see where we are. Oh, yes, anyway, more public?
So, isn't he representing you? Did you just speak for you, Mr. Kirker? Did he not just speak?
Mr. Kirker, he's still a member of the public. I don't see any reason why he can't speak. Staff? Is there?
Mr. Lauer speak for him. How many people are going to speak? Mr. Lauer represents.
It is public.
Yeah.
Attorney Lawler is also a member of public, as is Mr. Kirker.
Relative to this, being part of the nature and character of the neighborhood, that's not how this is going to play out. Because right now it's a peaceful neighborhood and everybody's got a room for themselves. All of a sudden we're going to find that, I love the underground parking idea, except that the FedEx truck can't get in there, and the rubbish truck's going to be out on South Street, and I don't know where the Amazon truck is going to park, or the pool cleaner, or the cleaning service, or anybody else. even guests, when they come, they're not going to have automatic ability to open that garage door in the bottom and hope there's space in it. So it's going to be a cluster, and that's what has me very bothered. I love the idea that it got lower, and I didn't object when people asked me from around town if 3.5 stories would be fine. I said it'd be great, as long as there's some ground space left over so that he can take in whoever comes to visit, rather than leaving them stuck in the street and clogging up that street. At the bottom of the street, you've got the police department, 2 fire boats, the dockside marina, which is mine, and all I don't want to see is, I didn't want to see 6 stories or 5 stories, whatever it was all done. And if there was space to take all that stuff off the street, I'd get over the idea of this. I'd rather it be 3.5 stories if he left some ground space so the neighborhood doesn't become a disaster. That doesn't work for the nature and character of a neighborhood. And the bylaw clearly says that. So that's what I wanted to say. And although that had nothing to do with Hyannis Marina that got mentioned, the main marina building is where it was when I bought it. The tugboats building is where it was when I bought it. And I don't have to park anybody in the street. Every customer and truck and everything else gets off the street because I didn't want to insult that neighborhood. So it might have been allowed, but I just wasn't going to do that. And also, relative to the history lesson about Mr. Bornstein tearing down the hotel and all that, little error. He bought a vacant lot and the other lot had the restaurant on it, and that's all. That's how he bought it. That's how it was. And I don't object. I'd like to see something beautiful get built there. I just don't want to see the character and nature of that neighborhood become a train wreck. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from public comment? This is Town Councilor Kristen Turkelson, I believe. Oh, should be
I
there.
would sign
Oh,
it
the
if I
sign in?
had
Oh, pen. I was going to say, did somebody walk off with our sign-in sheet?
Yeah, it's right here.
Kristen Turkelson, Centerville. I am not a historical expert, but the thing that bothers me about this plan is the corner pieces, and I think the breaking up of the massing was the reason that maybe there's so much variety, but the variety kind of confuses me. I would think that if somebody was building these as a unit, they probably would have used similar corner pieces all the way through to kind of tie them in, but it seems like there's maybe 2 or 3 different kind of turret structures, and that kind of confuses me and visually doesn't seem like something that would have been done. But I'm not a historical expert, so it's just my kind of, when I look at it, it just kind of makes me shake my head. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment?
Marie Souza, and I don't represent anyone. I'm really confused about this, what was mentioned prior about taking up the whole lot. I mean, I was raised in Hyannis, and I look at Bradford's Hardware, for example. I'm not sure if that's in your historic district, but basically you have a sidewalk in front of the whole building. So I don't think it's unusual to have a building like this. When I first saw the renderings, I thought, this is beautiful. And when those shakes gray, naturally gray, I mean, that's going to look like it's been there. I mean, the building behind Puritan looks like that with the rounded corners. And I think it's beautifully done architecturally. I mean, I think it fits so much nicer in. I don't have to mention the other project, but it certainly looks better than the restaurant that was there that was falling down. I like to go there too, but, this is progress. We need housing, and I think this is a beautiful project. As far as the view from the ocean, I actually took the time to go down to Bismore Park, and I did some a couple of shots there. I happened to be photographing other properties, and the steamship authority came in, and honestly, I could barely see the hospital over the height of the steamship. So I'm not really sure where the issue is with the view coming from the ocean. And if I'm correct, my understanding is historical is basically what you see from the street, not from what you see from the ocean. So I'm not sure that that's relevant. I don't see how this could be any better than it is. I just think it's amazing, and I think it's very in keeping with the area. I don't understand why somebody wouldn't think that it wasn't. If you go up and down a lot of rooming houses in that area, and they're 2 stories, 2.5 stories, some of them, and I just think it, like I said, 5-10 years from now, you're going to say, how long has this been here? And that's a good project when it fits into what I feel is the area. And I don't think it's going to look any higher than the condos that are behind it, even though maybe that's not historic. It's still in the neighborhood, and it's the perception of people going down South Street. I think it's impressive. And I think it's a good deterrent from looking at the hospital, which is so, it kind of helps scale the hospital a little bit too. So I think it's a great project, and I support it.
Any others for public comment?
To buttress Marie's point, just real quick, we're at 90% lot coverage is allowed. We're at 63% proposed and 64% that's on the site plan there. So we're well under what's allowed in this district, just as a point of reference. 63 and 64% roughly versus a 90% allowed. And that's made by the efficient parking under the building, I would say. That allows that.
Thank you. Read my mind. I was going to ask. Any others for public comment? I'll leave that open for just a moment, just to address Ms. Souza, and I think my neighbors used you as a realtor. They're very happy. The one thing I would point out, one of the things that comes to mind, because it's been come before us every once in a while, where you had mentioned the ferry coming in. I don't know if it's a car ferry or if it was a passenger ferry, but we know what we've all seen them. It depends where you're looking. If you're in a boat on one side of the ferry and you're half a mile out or 3/4 of a mile out, it's still going to look like you can't see anything there. It's a matter of getting the perspective. If you have, for instance, the lighthouse that's on the corner, which everybody who lives around here is well aware of, and you're further out towards the channel entrance, and you put a quarter up in front of you, it's going to block out a lot of that lighthouse where, you can't really tell, and it looks very small with the proposed site in the background. So it depends on the perspective of where you are, where the start and the end points are. But thank you very much for your input. Anyone else for public comment? Nope. Okay. Any other staff reports?
Nothing further this time.
Any other comments from the commissioners?
Can I?
Yes.
Go ahead,
Sorry. Whoops. I heard something both ways. Commissioner Cronin.
Yes, a question on the density. That was one of my questions that I had from before. I'm sorry, I missed it when I was questioning again. Before, the density was 7 units per acre. That was the existing zoning for the Hyannis Harbor District. Jim, is that still in place?
No, so the density in downtown Hyannis involves the number of parking spaces that can fit on a site, and it's 1 per unit. So that's where this density is coming from, is 1 parking space per 1 unit. That's for all. That's in the standards for all districts.
All districts, including the harbor?
Correct.
And Hyannis Historic?
Well, so the Hyannis Historic is not a zoning district. So
that's right.
It's the downtown Hyannis zoning districts, which includes Hyannis Harbor zoning district, which is almost entirely in the Hyannis Historic District.
Good point, thank you.
And so how many, I'm just trying to, I can't read the numbers on this. How many parking spots are on here?
Sure, so I could answer that. It shows up under the zoning table, so the proposed use multifamily residential, let me pull that over. On the east side of the site, we call it the east building and the west building. Again, it's a form-based code, so you just do it by what you can put on the site with meeting all the buffers and so forth. 39 spaces provided underground in 28 units, so we're overparked by about 11 spaces on that one. And on the west side, there's 26 units, and we've got 32 spaces provided, so in excess there as well.
So if there are 2 people per household, then there's not enough, with 2 cars, there wouldn't be enough parking spaces?
So on the west side, I think the dynamics are changing a little bit, but you'd have 7 of them on the west would be able to double up or have that available for guests. On the east, a little bit more. But that would be accurate. You'd have to be a 1-car home or, rent some spaces somewhere else if you had 2 vehicles or use Uber. But this is walkable to a lot of the downtown, and we're thinking we might get quite a few 1-car families or groups in here.
Commissioner Hinckley Needham, I think you were the other one that had a question. Was that your question? Or
I
is
had
it
another one.
Go ahead.
Is massing in our purview, Jim?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, it's on. I can go over, for new construction, some of the bigger genres of scale and proportion, massing, relation of the building to the street, the roof forms, and the facade designs, of course, and all the architectural features, obviously.
Thank you. And I just wanted to know, did you build up the site to any before you put the condos there? Is it bit like,
Well,
extra dirt? To
The situation is that if you go onto the west parcel, there's a gravel parking lot that's held up by the back wall of that old 2-story motel. So there's a retaining wall there now. So historically, that was built up. I think the steamship cut a little, and we're going to be filling a little bit on that side. On the far east side, the hill is a little bit higher than we wanted, so we cut that down and put a retaining wall. So we cut on one side, say 2 to 3 feet, and filled on the other side 6 or so feet plus.
So just to understand, you won't be adding height to the ground, the base, in order to, and then building on top of that?
Not
I think it's what
noticeably,
you were
no.
getting
The rendering there is quite accurate. It might go up a foot or so in the front, but it's generally the same as it is on the east side. On the west side, it's about where it is now. You always want to sheet the water away from the building, so I'm sure we fill just a bit against the building. But it's a cut on the far east side and a fill on the far west side, but not significant. There is a little bit of a slope in front as Sill Street goes from high to low, so it's a cut to a fill. That's the situation.
Thank you. I have a question, but I can see 2 other commissioners that they have one. Commissioner Matthews.
I just had one quick question. Somebody mentioned the condos there on South Street as well. Was that part of the Hyannis Historic District? Those condos?
Sorry,
The ones across from the Anchor Inn there?
Yes.
It was. How many, what do we got there for height?
I believe it's 4 stories. I'm not certain the exact height. We had that dimension at one point.
Okay. They're not in the HHDC?
Yeah, across the street from us, their parking lot is. They tore down a house and put in a parking lot. I think that's in it, but I don't.
But not that the condo. I'm just wondering
Their
because.
parking lot. Yeah, I think it is cut off at our lot.
Let me correct myself. Ms. Cronin is correct. It's on the boundary of the historic district,
Gotcha.
but it's outside.
Okay.
And that was in fact a regulatory agreement that was approved for that one to make it the 4-story.
Gotcha, okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Cronin, for clarifying that. And Jim.
If you have questions, I actually handled that project. I can answer.
He's responsible.
No finger pointing, please. So I have a question. One, I am concerned about the density. And the reason I'm concerned about the density is something else that was brought up, and I apologize, I can't remember which commissioner brought it up, but it is something I am questioning. Commissioner Doherty, you will love this. A lot of these units may well have other family that come or stay with them, children, whatever. what amenity, if you look at, if you can bring the two orange rectangles up, vertical rectangles. Thank you. Out of that, I like the foliage, but what is going to be there for amenities? Benches, if there's kids, is there a place? Do they have to go out
Dogs.
in the street? What?
Dogs.
Dogs, we don't want to forget the dogs. But can you address if there's something to, because it hasn't been, it was just briefly touched on, but it is a pertinent thing, and that is part of the historic nature, to not just have units that go to trees and then end. Where do people with kids go to?
So there's a number of parks in the area. We've got, the walkway where the common entry is. You can go right out to South Street. You can walk up. There's a beautiful walk down to the pier, the public John Brown Landing, where they have some nice stairway down and a beautiful dock system there that they can enjoy the views on the water. Further up, there's a pretty good sidewalk system around the Cape Cod Healthcare where you'll see the nurses walking around in loops. So it's mostly on public spaces around the site. There isn't a statutory requirement to have, open recreational, shuffleboard courts or tennis courts on the property. And this is one of the properties that, perhaps doesn't have that. But there would be available, you're close to downtown. There's Bismore Park to the west. You can go down, walk down South Street past. There's a couple of pocket parks in a beautiful area there by the docks to walk around the art shanties and stuff. So we'd expect people would be recreating. Again, it might not be your first choice if you have a young toddler. It's a free country, and if you want to move in with kids, you can do it, but perhaps they would look at a different spot. But there is, some amenities around, public amenities around. School Street is public. There's a town landing at the end where the fire boats go. You can walk down there. And enjoy the views and off the water. It's not a beach, but you can certainly look at it and enjoy it. And the Steamship Authority is open to the public, but of course that's just an area where you could walk on. But that's all I can think of really is just some walking amenities. I'm sure Mr. Bornstein, if the sales are good and people at request, we could put in some benches through this board's approval process in the landscaped areas around the site. But for now, we just enjoy the public walking facilities around the area.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I was just wondering, are these apartments or condos?
It's a condominium form of ownership is the business plan right now. He's told me that before and kept all the condos for himself, though, so we'll see. But, yeah, I would think they would be individually sold.
Is there a percentage of ownership versus rental?
There's a big shortage of housing in that area for the nurses, the doctors. Some of these are going to be priced very reasonable, and they're for people to live downtown. It's a residence. It's a home.
Mm-hmm.
We don't allow rentals once a year, which no seasonal, no weeklies. It's basically a home. We're creating a neighborhood. Both sides of the street, you're going to feel you're living in a neighborhood. And I want to tell you, originally, Dan's group really did an outstanding job. I mean, 6 of them labored for 2 months, and I mean...
Mike's group.
Mike's group.
I did well, too, but not that
And
good.
we had as many as 64 units, but it didn't look right. It was blocky. It was not architecturally pleasing to me. I didn't like it. We got it down to 54 units where it has some character. I mean, you could look at it and go, wow. And if you look at those around, that was very important to me. And we want to make these homes for people to live in. And that's the direction we're going with all of it. And we've had a lot of interest for people that want to live and walk around town. There's a lot of people that don't have cars that want to live downtown. It's amazing in some of our rentals how many people have bicycles. In fact, these have storage areas to put bicycles inside. They have mail rooms to receive your packages. We've thought of everything for the customer to rotate. When they bring a car in, they have shopping carts to take them up the elevator and take the goods in where they got to go. We thought if anybody's visited the Cape Cod Times what we did with inside it, it's amazing. We've had people said we never thought we lived downtown until they saw what we did with this. And we have had 100% people waiting in line to get in there. And our rents are $500 to $800 less than anything else being built in the area. We don't sit and try to get the most. We try to be just to make it compatible. That's our rentals. The same with the condos. They're going to be a lot. There'll be some affordables. There'll be some expensive ones in there. It's an expensive project to build. It's not cheap. All the materials expensive. It's a 50-year life outside of that building. You won't have to paint it. Won't have to replace it. It's virtually going to build like a hurricane-proof, so the people living there don't have to have big insurance bills. This is a state-of-the-art of being solid. And this was important to us because maintenance on this stuff can kill you. And we built it and designed it so you don't have to go out there and paint it for 50 years. And just done a great job. And I cannot tell how much him and his firm have put into this in their hearts. I mean, we've been on the phone at 11 o'clock at night changing things and making it. And this will be, the town will be proud. This is a great piece of architecture. This isn't how cheap we can build it and what we can get for it. This was something to create a real visual wow. And I hope you can take a real good look at those pictures because we put our hearts in them. You've got some holdouts of materials we're using. You can see what we're putting there is not stuff that's just you buy at a Home Depot. This is all stuff that's got to be ordered and made up. And this is what we created in there. And we're very proud of what we've created. So I hope you'll feel the same way about it as we do.
I'm confused. Is it all condos or is it a mixture of condos?
All condos,
All
100% condos.
So association, they'll have an association.
Association
that
will
will
run
take
their own
care of it.
association. They'll run it, they'll manage it. The condo fees will be minimal because we don't have a pool, we don't have a clubhouse. That accounts, believe it or not, a tennis court and a pool account for almost 50% of a condo fee.
The only thing is I disagree with people walking downtown. There's nothing downtown. There's no supermarket, there's no drugstore. This is where people go. People go downtown to eat, really, basically, in Hyannis. So I know that's not our part, but it's not that you're going to hear that you're not going to have a car situation here when people are going to walk downtown, especially in 22-degree weather.
I don't disagree with you. We'd be surprised how many Ubers do pick up the buses. The Cape Cod buses do a lot of pickup at our sites. You have parking for cars, and somebody will have a car and they'll go shopping when they have to go shopping. We got enough car parking down there. We think we did a good job on them. They're all good size to get in. There's also a big closed-circuit TV for deterrent for anything in the neighborhood, probably as many as 80 to 90 TV cameras for the residents to feel safe. That was a big request from a lot of the people that want to move in there. And they're mostly professional people. Some aren't professional, but they had a big concern of safety because the neighborhood's a neighborhood. We're trying to build it up and make it better, and that is a big challenge for us down there.
I think and I think the condos is going to make a big difference with an association and have ownership because there aren't a lot of condo
100%
opportunities
ownership,
for that. That makes a difference as far as a safety thing.
And we're going to try to have
Just my
some of them
comment.
is most inexpensive in the area of 500 and up. So we're trying to make them affordable too. These are the market rates, not the affordable rates.
Just getting back to the utility poles also, I live on Lewis Bay. I know how windy it gets, there now. And is this a matter of cost?
Cost is a big factor. It's $180,000 to take them down. And it's not in our budget to do it. I mean, if we do it, we got to add it on someplace. There is a lot of state money to take down those poles. The town's just got to apply for the money to get it. It's out there. And we're going to be talking to the town about that. Marty Riley, before he passed, knew all these programs. And he was going to get it started. And I haven't done anything about it. But I think in the future, they'll get taken down someplace or other.
So I'm sorry. Has that answered your question, Commissioner Doherty? I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry. So I have one comment with regard to what Commissioner Doherty commented on. And then I'm going to ask for a clarification on 2 points. I agree with you, downtown is not somewhere, although I support downtown and it being built up and all that, it's not, you want people from 54 condos just, that's the only place they can go. And you mentioned that, people with families and that can go over to the hospital grounds. Until like a couple months ago, and for the last 6 years, I worked for Cape Cod Healthcare, wonderful organization, but there's no real area except for at the entrance to the emergency department where there's any green, and that's between the entrance and the parking lot, and it's probably about 80 feet long and about 20 feet wide with cars on either side, so that it wouldn't really be a place where they would go, in my opinion.
I agree with you, but we have the Bismarck Park a block down by the harbor on Ocean Street, quite sufficient.
That is close, but it's also not very big, especially for people in 54 units. The other thing I would like clarified is you were talking about rentals in an association. And if you could clarify just simply so we have a better idea of density and how it's the ins and outs of people coming in and out. I think Commissioner Cronin made a very fair reference to that. If it's going to be all condos and there's going to be an association, I agree if associations can regulate it. But is there going to be, my concern would be that, one owner might own like half the units or something. And how long can they rent? You did say something about once or twice a year, but for how long?
No, the way we structure it, excuse me, we've done this with all our projects. They're allowed to have one rental a year. It could be for a minimum of a month or up to 12 months, but only once. So if somebody wanted to rent it for a year, that's it. They go away, they travel, they got another job and aren't using it for a year. And they're allowed to rent it for just 1 month once. So they have one rental a year, and they can pick as long as they want, but not any less than a month. And I will tell you, for our experience in all our properties, nobody rents them. People buy in because they don't want rentals to deal with. They don't want to deal with people they don't know. And we never had a problem of rentals in our property. There's no Airbnbs, and it's strictly enforced with some very stringent fines built into the condo docs that discourages that to happen. And it's policed by the owners that live there. And I will tell you, it amazes me how well it works.
Could you just clarify that? Because you said it's for rental 1 month, but then you said not less than 1 month. So it's a 1 month set and that's it.
That's it. Or you can...
Not more, not less.
Oh, no, let me clarify it. Maybe
Yes,
it wasn't
please.
clear. If you wanted to rent your unit, you can rent it as long as you want, but only once. But not any less than a month. You can't have 2 people in a year rent it. You can only have 1. In other words, I hope I'm explaining myself right.
Okay, thank you. I
In other
appreciate
words,
the clarification.
you can only rent it once a year. And you have the option of renting it for 1 month or 12 months. But, right, you can only do it once. If you decided you wanted to go to Europe for the summer and you had an aunt that wanted to use your condo and you wanted to rent it or give it to her for 2 or 3 months, you have that option. And when you came back, you couldn't rent it anymore. You'd have to live in it.
So if one person had a condo and they rented it for the full year, which you indicated,
Right.
could they sublet it to a company that would then
Absolutely
rent
not.
it out?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
So it's not
Very
like they can rent
strict.
it more.
Very strict.
So it wouldn't be to a company that can then have somebody change it
No,
every 2
no,
to 3 weeks?
it's very well done. Absolutely not. It's very strict on how we handle that. We don't do Airbnb. I mean, next to my house, I had a school bus pull in one weekend. It was an Airbnb. After I talked to the owner, who was an investment banker, that ended that rental project completely. They don't even know what goes on. But it's very strict monitored. It's not Airbnb. It's not a rental community. It has no intention. It has some very strict teeth in the condo docs and very big penalties. So it just, you don't have, that is not going to be our concern.
So last question, with regard to that and the association, will your company or entity be staying with that building to monitor it, or can they change all that after the condos are all sold?
We traditionally will stay on for management for 2 or 3 years at no charge to make sure it works okay. After it's all stabilized, we don't really want to be in the management business. Even they want to pay us, it's not what we do. Typically, the owners will take the management role that live there because it's a lot less money. Somebody will collect the money once every quarter, the dues come in. Somebody else will be there. If they want to hire a management company, it's up to the owners. But those bylaws can't be changed unless like 75 or 80% vote to change it. And that's tough to get in a condo association on any change. But we're there for a couple years. After that, we don't want to stay on. We have stayed on someone as long as 10 years, but that's not what we do.
So it could be changed to where it could be every 2 to 3 weeks
But
after they leave?
it will, but I can tell you about 10 or 12 different condo projects, and nothing has changed on those rental laws. They're cast in lead. They haven't changed them at all.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Was there anything else you wanted to say?
No, I want to thank you for taking the time, and I hope we can get a good vote. And like I said, you'll be very happy with the project. I promise you. You will not be disappointed with it. It'll be a feather in the cap for the town.
Okay. Commissioners, any other commissioners have anything else that they wanted to say or ask or anything?
The thing with all the details, I really would like to see, I just see all these pictures. I really want to see where it fits in.
I agree, and I'm going to.
Yeah, I agree.
My suggestion, and as I said, I'm only one vote, or one voice, one vote. My suggestion would be to clarify what we want clarified. I think we've seen, a lot, but I think there's some things we'd like to have clarified. I would personally suggest, and we go by the majority of the commission, that we continue to the next and have those questions answered by the time that we continue to. With that, how do the commissioners feel about that?
I agree. Mr. Bornstein, in all honesty, I think if those details were actually in the proposal that we could have seen and kind of mulled over on our own before we got there and then talked about it, together, I think it may have made a vote easier to do today. But I think those pictures really need to be in the actual proposal so we can just take a look at them. Okay, this is what you're doing. This is where it's going. This is how it looks. And then, again, I think the building's beautiful, but there's just some details I think that needed to be in the proposal. That's it.
Is there any commissioner who has a problem with that suggestion?
No, I think that's where I'm at right now, too, as well as showing it where it's going to be on the actual layout and design.
I can't see clear.
A larger scale plan because, we can print these out at 24 by 36, but the scans that come through the town are not very legible. But we've got on these plotted all the light poles, locations. You can see in plan and profile view on all of Mike's drawings. They're coordinated on my drawings. Some of them are hidden a little bit behind shrubs and stuff, but if you look carefully, all the lights are there. And then the appurtenances in the windows, you can't really see at this scale, but I think probably the only appropriate way would be to do a cut sheet on those. But if you zoom in on these plans, all the details are visible. It's just that the sets you get by their nature are very grainy.
I think just a situation where, like the sheet that you gave us, I don't know where it is now, there's one page where there's 8 different light fixture looks, and it's like, which one of these? You know what I mean? It's just, I think we just need the detail of that. And I'm sure it's on the plan, but if you were to say, okay, see what the plans are, that's what's going on there. Or again, get to this, a page of lights, if there's like all of these different, or the fence tops or whatever the case, there's so many different things. I think if you just narrowed it down to this is what we're doing here, I think that would make things a lot easier.
If you'd like me to walk through any of that, I'd be happy to. There is actually just one light fixture there. Those are just little appurtenances, like different finial options and things like that. Obviously, that's not going to really affect the historical appropriateness, whether it's a one finial or another, but be happy to walk through where those are. Each one of those sheets does have an indication of where it's being used, and I could explain where that is if you like. I'm happy to do that.
I did see that, but again, my preference is to have it as part of the actual proposal. So that way it's all in one place. Because in this kind of situation, if we don't have it written down and seen, and then you look to the proposal, well, what was it? We don't have it. There's nothing there. There's just a piece of a packet that's thrown around. I just don't think that's appropriate. I think we really should have it as part of the proposal. That's the only thing I'm saying.
And I think to your point, if you take the pictures that you've got where you could blow it up, where we've seen that before, where they've actually blown up a corner of that picture, if you will, and that is actually what the cornice is, or that is actually the material that's going to be used. You can see the shake on it. You can see the actual dimension and the colors of where it's going to be, light fixtures and such. I think that would make a big difference, and I think it will help us and you as well to kind of just tie this all together. I think that's the only thing that we're missing at this point.
I think there's been some very fair points here. So what I'm going to ask the commissioners, I've tried to tally things what they are, but I'm going to ask each commissioner to put down what they feel needs to be clarified, to send that to staff, to Jim, to then communicate with your people to these are the answers we would like and things we would like to see, please. I personally would also like to see something that isn't just wall to wall, but I'll put it in writing, something that kind of softens it up a bit. I think you've put a lot of work into it, into this proposal. It is a new proposal, but if we can get those clarifications. Do we have a date for a continuation that we can propose? And can I ask how much time you would like for it?
If we can make it for your next meeting, we can have all this material to you probably by Monday.
Okay.
The next meeting is February 7th.
And we have openings on that, I take it. We don't have too many people that might come in the cold, so I thought we'd be fine.
It's amazing we come in the cold.
We come in the cold, yes. But, okay, so I am going to make a motion that we communicate with Jim and staff, Karen, to know the things that we would like to see. It's where we each have these to peruse through them so that we can tackle this for the next meeting, which will be on February 7th. So they'll submit those, and if you work with planning to find out what those questions are, a request for clarifications. So that is a motion to continue this application to the next meeting, which is February the 7th. And is there?
I second that.
Okay, I will go. Commissioner Doherty.
Aye.
Commissioner Clark.
Aye.
Commissioner Matthews.
Aye.
Commissioner Hinckley Needham.
Aye.
Commissioner Crowley.
Aye.
Commissioner Cronin.
Aye.
I also say aye. It is continued to the 7th, and thank you for taking the time to, I'm
Point
sorry,
of
did
order,
you have a
is it
question?
6:30 PM?
Oh,
Time and date
6:30
certain?
PM, yes.
And public comment is closed, I take it?
Public comment is closed. And we will be moving on. You're welcome to stay.
Just for clarification, you're closing.
Yes, please.
You're
Yes.
closing the public hearing then. I think.
Not there, we still have other things to do, but we're with the hearing on,
Madam Chair, I think the question that's being had is, have you closed the public hearing, which means
For
closing the
this.
public comment? And I believe what was the motion was just simply a continuation of that hearing.
Continuation.
We did not formally close the hearing.
So I think it's within my, to a public comment, am I allowed to let him speak?
Well, no, so I think the question is, at the next meeting, will there be public comment
Oh,
availability?
I see, is that the
And-
question?
Yeah, I just think as a point of order, when the public meeting is open and new evidence presented, is that generally public comment?
Oh, yeah. I would assume that.
Yes,
Yeah.
oh, absolutely,
Or at the
yeah.
next meeting.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Oh, so I didn't understand that was what you wanted.
I think he was questioning whether there'd be any public comment at the next meeting, which I
When,
believe, as a point of order, there would be if the public hearing was open.
correct me if I'm wrong on any open meeting law, but my feeling is very strongly that if there's new evidence that is presented, then yes, we must leave it open to public comment. That is only fair and correct.
Yeah.
See you then. Thank you.
Agreed, yep.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry if I created confusion.
You didn't. I apologize for calling you by the wrong name to begin with.
Like I said, that's the worst thing that's happened today. It's been a great day.
Thank you. Okay. So, we're going to give people a couple minutes to do whatever they're going to do. And I'm going to move on. I do not have any matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair. So the next thing we have, I'll leave a minute just so it kept clear. Okay, so we are now ready. So we have approval of the December 11th, 2023 draft minutes. Would one of the commissioners like to make a motion for an approval of those minutes?
Sure, I'll make that motion to approve the minutes from December 11th.
And it is seconded. Just to clarify, membership, attendees, can everyone vote tonight?
I was there.
Can I just make a comment on
Sure.
the meeting minutes?
Absolutely.
On the second page or towards the end on matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair on page 3, I had to mention that the Patriot Building was to be renovated, restored, needs to be repaired, and I said, can we request the planning board bring it forward? And I think I meant the planning department to do it, because this is the planning board, but it really would be the planning department to follow up on that regulatory agreement to find out whether that is being, where's the status of it, because I only had a certain amount of years to get the project done, but the Patriot Building is a historic building and was supposed to be repaired, so that should be the planning department.
Page 2.
Page 3, sorry.
Oh, page 3.
Right
Where
at the top.
Page 3.
It's on the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6th sentence down. It said Laura Cronin, Patriots
Right-hand
Building.
side. We okay with that amendment?
Is that the meeting of the 20th or the 11th?
This is the 11th, December 11th.
That was the big joint board, the 11th.
No, the 20th, I
20th.
think, from our, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was the
The
11th.
11th.
I apologize.
But we'll keep that in mind.
I don't have those meetings in front of me. Okay, sorry.
We'll keep that one in mind. So it looks like, are we okay on the 11th?
Yes,
Can I
sorry.
have a motion?
Once again, I motion
We
to
did.
approve the planning board minutes for December 11th.
And somebody else did second before.
Oh, here you go.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So,
Do it again.
Commissioner Doherty. Commissioner Clark.
Aye.
Commissioner Matthews.
Aye.
Commissioner Hinckley Needham.
Aye.
Commissioner Crowley. Commissioner Cronin. I also say aye. Those are approved. Laura, you're up. The
No, I'm
December
sorry, that's the only
20th,
ones I had in
2023.
front of me. December 20th, on the page 3, changing it from the planning board to the planning department.
She wanted to give you extra time to find it.
I'm sorry.
Don't worry about it.
I must have missed those minutes over there.
It's late.
Certainly is.
Got it? Any others? Anybody? And everyone can vote that, on that? Okay. So can I have a motion for the 20th?
I make a motion to approve the December 20th meeting minutes as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Hinckley Needham.
Aye.
Commissioner Crowley.
Aye.
Commissioner Cronin. Commissioner Doherty. Commissioner Clark.
Aye.
Commissioner Matthews.
Aye.
I also say aye. Those are approved. I want to thank all the commissioners for their time tonight. Good job. I think there was a lot of fantastic input, and thank you very much. Next HHDC meeting is scheduled for February the 7th, and then the one after that is February the 21st. So, would any commissioner like to make a motion for an adjournment?
Can I ask a quick question?
Oh, sure, yes.
Who do we email about the questions that we want to ask them?
Jim.
Okay.
Jim has his hand raised.
Our pal, Jim.
Yeah, if we could get those in, please, just simply, so they have time. All right, so, motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Doherty beat you to the punch.
Aye.
Would you like to second?
Second.
I'll third it.
Can I third?
We got one.
I fourth.
I'm going to take those as votes. Commissioner Doherty.
Aye.
Commissioner Clark.
Aye.
Commissioner Matthews.
Aye.
Commissioner Hinckley Needham.
Aye.
Commissioner Crowley.
Aye.
Commissioner Cronin.
Aye.
I also say aye. Have a good evening, everybody. We are adjourned.